Hello teacher, we are group 6. And today we'll dive into the further surprising world of behavioral economics and game theory. We'll explain key concepts, show how they differ, explore theoretical foundations using public good and CPR games, and review one experimental study to connect theory with real-world applications.
We will start with two big ideas, bounded rationality and prospect theory. This explores some famous economics games like risk game or dictator game. Finally, we will review some academic studies that use these games to understand real human decisions. Let's find out why humans are not as rational as they think.
Now, let's look at different of type good compare. First, public good are non-drivers. Non-excludable. That means one person use doesn't reduce how much other can use, and you can stop anyone from using it. For example, national defense on clean air. Everyone benefits from them, but that also rewrite the problem where people enjoy the benefit without contributing. Second, common pool resources. They are rivalrous but non-excludable, so people can use them freely. But if one person takes more, less elect for other. Example include fishery, forest, and groundwater. Because asset is open, people tend to overuse them, leading to the trading of the commons. Third, goods are excludable but not rivalrous up to a point. That means you can reach asset, but multiple people can use them as one without affecting each other. And let it get to private. Example, a Netflix subscription or a gym membership. You have to pay to join, but many users can share the same services. And finally, private goods. They are excludable and rivalrous. You have to pay for them, and when you consume them, other can. For example, an apple or a pair of shoes. Private goods are usually handled efficiently by market because it's easy to change for them. So understanding their forte help us see why some goods need market while others need cooperation or government policy.
Alright, thank you. And now that we have defined and distinguished the four types of goods, let's take a look at how we can see those ideas in a symbol diagram. Like on this dot, we have two main features, rivalry and excludability. Rivalry means if I use it, there is left for others, and excludability means we can stop people from using it. Non-rivalrous means one person doesn't reduce the ability of the good to others. For example, when we watch the fireworks, everyone can enjoy it at the same time. And the non-excludable means you can stop people from using it even if they don't pay, like street lighting or clean air. Everyone benefits. This diagram helps us clearly see why some goods can cause problems in real life. But there's a problem called the free rider problem. Public goods create a free rider problem because consumers are able to utilize public goods without paying for them. The free rider problem is an inefficient distribution of goods or services that occurs when some individuals are allowed to consume more than their fair share of the shared resource or pay less than their fair share of the cost. The free rider problem can be illustrated through a reasonable dilemma game. We can say this is the example. Like if both Tom and Adele contribute, the total benefit is $20, so it earns a net gain of plus $4. If only one contributes, the total benefit is $10, and the contributor will lose $1, while the non-contributor gains $5. And if neither contributes, there are no costs and no con left, no benefits. And the result, both choose not to contribute even through a cooperation would be better for both, but they choose to not contribute. Now let's talk about the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of commons is an economic theory claiming that individuals tend to exploit shared resources so that demand outweighs supply and it's become unavailable for the whole. And the tragedy of the common occurs when an economic good is rigorous in consumption, non-excludable, scale, and a common pool resource. Each consumer consumes as much as they can, as fast as they can, before others deplete the good, and no one had the incentive to reinvest in maintaining or reproducing the good. For example, imagine share leg with fish and want to touch more to earn money. But if all the fishers do that, the lake will soon be empty and nobody benefits in the long run. So that the tragedy of the commons teaches us that without coordination or regulation, shared resources can be overused and destroyed. That's why rules monitoring and community management are important to make sure that the resource is used sustainability. And for the solution is that we can use the tax dollars, that the government can address the problem by collecting and distributing tax dollars to subsidize public services, or the privatization or the fees can impose a small fee for everyone. This will limit overconsumption.
Okay, let's move to the puppet good game, the hot pot story. Now picture this, you and your friend go out for a hot pot. Everyone had 100,000 in their pocket. If everyone put their money into the share pot, so you will have a big delicious meal. But what if one person think, why should I pay? Let the other cover it. I can do it. This is exactly the puppet good game in this. So if each player will receive an endowment, you decide keep them or put some into the group account. The group account is multiplying double and then share equally among all players. So what usually happens? At the beginning, people often contribute because they still trust each other. But once they see free riding, they start contribute less. Eventually, the group account shrink and everyone end up with less. So in microeconomics, which show a market failure, individual decisions lead to an inefficient social outcome. That is why we need governments or rules to collect the taxes and make sure everyone contributes. So let's move to the structure of the standard liner puppet good game. Structure start with their N players, each with an employment E. It decides how much to contribute if it is CE to a public account. The total contribution is each player pay off. This is yes, this is the formula. Like N is the marginal per capita return, measure how much each player gain from the public good. So it's appear in equilibrium. Each player maximizes their own payoff, taking all the contribution at given. Sin divide and less than one contributing yield is a private loss. Bad response for it is contribute nothing with the net equilibrium. CI equal 0 for all players and everyone free rise. This is the formula. So the group payoff is, this is the formula. If the N bigger than 1, the total will increase with total contribution. And everyone contribute fully, but individual have incentive to deviate social dilemma. This is the final outcome with the logic and the result.
So let's move to the concepts of conditional cooperation and marginal per capita return. So conditional cooperation is the tendency of an individual to cooperate, for example, contribute, share, or put in efforts, and only if others in the group also cooperate, or if they expect others to cooperate. In other words, a person assures their level of cooperation according to cooperation level of others. Psychological and social background. Human behavior in social dilemmas is not purely selfish. People often care about fairness, trust, and reciprocity. So conditional cooperation emerges from two key motives. Reciprocity. First of all, the reciprocity. People want to respond positively to the cooperative behavior of others. If others contribute to the common good, individuals feel morally and socially obliged to the same. The second is fairness. If people dislike inequality or being exploited, if they perceive that others are not contributing their fair share, they are likely to reduce or stop their own contribution to avoid being a sucker. For example, imagine a group of students working on a group project. If everyone is actively participating, sharing ideas, finishing their tasks on time, and helping one another, each member is more likely to stay motivated and contribute as well. However, if some students are lazy or fail to do their case, to do their share, others will quickly lose motivation and may reduce their efforts too. This reflects conditional cooperation. The level of cooperation depends on others' behavior. So let's move to the importance of conditional cooperation plays a crucial role in maintaining social order and collaboration. It helps groups, communities, and societies So let's move to the second part, marginal per capita return. So marginal per capita return means the individual marginal benefit in public goods game. It measures how much additional benefits each person receives when one individual contributes one more unit to the public good. In other words, it represents the individual marginal benefits from another person's contribution. For example, a class of 5 students plays a public goods game. Each student receives 10 initial points. They can either keep their points or contribute part of all of them to a common pool. The total contribution to the common pool is then doubled, increased in value, and evenly divided among all 5 students. Suppose one student contributes 1 additional point to the common pool. Total pool increases by 1 times 2 equal 2 points, and each person receives 2 divided by 5 equal to 1.4 points. Thus, MPCR equal 0.4. And if MPCR less than 1, it means that the personal cost of contributing is higher than the personal benefits received. The lower a PC, the weaker the motivation to cooperate. The higher the PCR, the stronger the incentive for individuals to contribute. In this case, because MPCR less than 1, the individual's return is, so therefore rational individual has an incentive to keep the points rather than contribute to the common pool.
So I will introduce the definition of the element effects as well as the communication and punishment mechanism. First, the definition. The element effect is a behavioral economics concept that describes how people tend to value something more highly simply because they always. There are some of the indication of this effect. First of all, it challenges the traditional economic assumption that preferences are stable and independent of ownership. Moreover, it also helps explain consumer behavior, resistant to change and loss aversion, which means people dislike losses more than they love gaining. The second one is communication mechanism. In experimental economics and game theory, communication and punishment help explain cooperation. First, communication mechanism refer to ways participants can share information, intention, or strategies before making decisions, even if no communication aren't binding. For example, in a public good games, if participants can discuss their contributions before playing, the average contributions usually rise dramatically. The last one is the punishment mechanism. Punishment mechanism, a system that allows individuals or groups to impose costs on others who violate norms, cheat, or fail to cooperate. A fact is that punishment deters free riding and promotes cooperation. However, it can also lead to antisocial punishment, which means punishing cooperators or inefficiencies if used excessively.
How cooperation emerges. Lessons from a multi-level game. You know, cooperation sounds easy until you have to do it. We all want people to work together, to think beyond themselves, to contribute to the common good. But when money, trust, and incentives get involved, things get complicated. That's exactly what a group of researchers at University wanted to understand. They ran a fascinating behavioral laboratory experiment, not a simulation, not a survey, but a real game with real people sitting across from each other, making real decisions. Let's find out about the first one, the part 1, experimental results with the participants. The experiment included 220 participants, almost all of them students in the from the University. Among them, 114 were Dutch, 106 were international with an average age of 24. The sample included 153 females, 63 females, and 4 others. It's a homogeneous group. Students from a similar educational background, but that's intentional. It's in a controlled lab environment. This makes it possible to isolate cooperative behavior to see it develop in its purest form.
So let's move to the experimental design and groups. Participants played a multi-level public goods game and elegant economic game that mirrors real-world cooperation. Each global group had 4 participants divided into 2 local groups of 2 members each. Every round, players had 3 choices to keep their money, contribute locally or contribute globally. In other words, act for yourself, for your small team, and for everyone. There were 4 versions of the game. In some, players started in a single group structure that later became multi-level. In others, it was the reverse, and in half of these versions, player could also punish others after seeing their contributions. The next part Incentives. At the start of every round, each participant received 20 monetary units. They could allocate them among 3 accounts. Private accounts, its fully personal return rate at 1, and local accounts shared with 1 partner return rate 0.7. Global accounts shared among all 4 players return rate 0.5.
For example, someone contribute 20 MUs to the local good, they will get 14 MU back. Their partner would get 14 MUs, and together they create 56 MUs in value. But here, the problem: if your partner doesn't contribute, you lose your money. That is the free rider problem. Everyone loves public good until they have to pay for them. The marginal per capita return (MPCR), the individual return per unit contributed, were less than 1, which means there always temptation to rewrite the tensions in the HUD experiment, and in some round, players could also punish each other. If punishment on top, the punisher 1 MU, and the punished player lost 3 MUs. Costly, yes, but powerful. To the Part D treatment. With treatment, the researcher varied 2 main conditions: whether the player could use peer punishment and whether they move from a single group PGG to a multi-level PGG or vice versa. Peer punishment allowed mutual sanctioning among participants, a way for them to enforce cooperation themselves. The multi-level via single group contract status, how structure, symbol, or netted influence people's willingness to cooperate.
The next part is outcome measurement. Throughout the experiment, the researchers measured first contributions to local and global accounts. The next is punishment points sent and received, as well as the participants' normative expectation. That is what they thought others should contribute and what they personally believed was appropriate. They also checked overall cooperation performance for total contribution and how stable they remained over time. Because cooperation is not just only about what people do, but also it's about what they believe others expect them to do. Then the next part is main finding. First, Katie shows punishment is effective only after prior cooperation experience. When players started in a multi-level game, punishment didn't promote cooperation. But when they began with a single group game first, a smaller, simpler setting, and then moved to a multi-level one, punishment became highly effective. Global cooperation jumped from 8.31 to 14.71 MUs, a significant increase. The reason is simple. Punishment works only when shared norms already exist. Without them, it feels like hostility. With them, it enforces fairness and shared responsibility. The next part is global cooperation is higher when players are more. When players who first learn to cooperate in small groups later show stronger cooperation at a global level. Studying small helps people build trust and shared norms, the social glue that allows cooperation to scale. Those who started directly in complex settings, by contrast, struggle to navigate between local and global interests. So if they want global cooperation, the path begins with smaller, trusted communities. The final part is punishment patterns reflect involvement social norms. In single group games, punishment targeted low local contributors. But once the structure became multi-level, it shifted, which means punishment now targeted those who fail to contribute to global good. This shift reveals something profound. As the social world expands, so does our moral circle. Norms evolve from the local to the global, and with them, our sense of fairness grows broader.
Let's move to the next part, policy and development implications. From these findings, 3 lessons stand out. The first one is start small. Big cooperation in climate policy development projects or international agreements start with local trust and collaboration. Secondly, punishment requires shared norms. Sanctions only work where people already share common expectations. Without that, just punishment just deepens conflict. Finally, cooperation is driven by norms, not just gain. Even when personal rewards are small, people still cooperate because fairness and belonging matter. The takeaway, before scaling up, communities and institutions should invest in building trust locally. Only then can cooperation grow sustainably at national or global levels.
So now let's go through the critical evaluation. The first one, so the results are strong in the lab, but external validity is limited. All participants were university students, educated, relatively trusting, and from similar social contexts. Their behavior may differ from that of broader, more diverse populations. The public goods game also simplifies real-world cooperation. In reality, cooperation is shaped by culture, politics, history, and power. So this experiment doesn't prescribe every society. Instead, it provides mechanistic evidence showing how cooperation emerges, not where it will. Even so, its lessons are conceptually broad. They apply to international organizations and to develop policies that begin with small-scale cooperation before expanding outward. The second, underlying mechanisms. So two core mechanisms explain what happened. First, the formation and spillover of social norms. People learn to cooperate in small groups, and those norms transfer to larger contexts. Positive local experiences build trust, and that trust extends outward. Second, social punishment as a conditional mechanism. Punishment only works when people already share a sense of fairness. Without that, it erodes trust. Once norms are established, though it reinforces cooperation. Together, these mechanisms create a powerful cycle. Trust, then shared norms, then effective punishments, then sustained cooperation.
Okay, let's move to the relation to microeconomic theory. These results can be integrated through game theory and behavioral microeconomics. Experimental phenomenon-related microeconomy theory, choosing between private and public benefits, public good gain, illustrate a brief rider problem. Continued contribution is low private return, conditional cooperation. People cooperate if they expect others to do so. Punishment improve cooperation when none is it. Incentive and sanction theory. Punishment stabilize cooperation next. Equilibrium when trust is high. Learning to cooperate in small groups first. Repeated game and social learning strategies evolve through experience and observations. This connection reminds us that people aren't just rational calculator, they social learner, shaped by just fairness and expectation of others.
In the end, this study isn't just about economics. It's about how justice is built, how fairness spreads, and how cooperation grows from small groups into global communities. The message is simple. Before we can cooperate as nations, we must first learn to cooperate as neighbors, because in the multi-level game of human life, the greatest return isn't measured in money, but in trust. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.